Hey everyone! Before we open today's file, please make sure to follow us on Instagram at d.s.radio, where you can find all the images that go along with today's case. You can drop us an email at contact.dsradio@gmail.com. You can find all of our socials in the Linktree bio on our Instagram profile, including links to merch. If you're feeling especially generous, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio, where you can get access to our exclusive Instagram page and make suggestions for upcoming episode topics that you would like us to cover. Speaking of Patreon, thanks to our Patreons, Riff Cult, Cropley Crab, Cash Broadus, Raspberry Jr., Jason R. Nelson, Creepy Paper, Jamie Sook, Michael Laughlin, Lindsay Keller, Mike Wright, Greer Weaver, Kelsey Carruthers, Linz Gibbon, Drake Holvig, Only Child, Michael M, Wesley Akers, Riaz K, Emily Medeiros, Pip, Heather Wynn, Graves, Devon Sweatshirt, The Ordained Sinister Minister, and Philip Hoffman. Hi everyone, and welcome to Dystopian Simulation Radio. I'm your host, Linz.
And after being cancelled for 1 week, I am back. It's Chris.
You deserved it. Did you get any listeners astroplaning into your bedroom at night as punishment?
Just September, but that's kind of normal.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a routine thing, isn't it?
Speaking of which, thank you very much to Septembrio for filling in for me in the previous episode. For anybody who doesn't know, my mic decided to die on me, which was really handy as we'd arranged recording for that night. So Septembrio kindly stepped in and did a fantastic job. So if you haven't listened to the last episode, go back and listen to it. But hopefully you can hear me now on this beautiful new microphone that I have.
You do sound delicious, I will tell you that much. And maybe it was a blessing in disguise, because that Yeti that you were using before was slowly and painfully dying as the weeks went on. So I think, I think this could be a good thing.
If anybody wants to buy a Blue Yeti, just let me know.
Yeah, Chris will draw a little alien on it for you. If you want to start your own silly podcast about weird things, you could buy Chris's mic. That would be good.
I mean, I'm pretty sure. I know it's working. It just hated my computer. Whereas this microphone, it's the start of something beautiful.
Yeah, Chris was using a Mac, so if you have a Mac, maybe don't. Any other computer? Yes. So Chris,
yes,
how have you been, and what have you been up to?
I've been good. I have been international. I had a little trip over to Spain across the Easter weekend.
Ooh.
And now I'm back in sunny old England. I was greeted at the airport with the traditional British welcome of it pissing down with rain and
glorious. And I'm in Sweden right now, so we've both been jet-setting around a bit, but I will also be back in England in probably a week or something. So, oh yeah.
Cool. We should like hang out.
Yeah, we should actually meet in person sometime, being best friends and all, and also co-hosts of a podcast. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw your face that I could just go beak, beak, beak and squish your cheeks in real life. So we have to set that up.
We'll do that. Not a problem. Now, speaking of the podcast, of course, we're going to be having a tale today that Linz is going to be presenting. Just to remind everybody, you can follow along with all of the images. It's going to be on our Instagram page, which is
Instagram at d.s.radio.
And if you're especially a big fan of our podcast and you'd like to support us in our endeavors that we're doing, you can always sign up to our Patreon, which is
patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio.
And one of the really cool things about the Patreon is that you will get access to our exclusive Instagram page, which we post all sorts of behind the scenes things, memes, and other different things that we might have going on that's exclusive to our Patreons. And you can find that on Instagram, which is
DSR Friend Club, which is a very lame play on the Misfits Fiend Club.
It's the only type of pun that we'd have, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can request that if you're a Patreon. You will only be allowed access if you are one of our Patreons. Speaking of Patreon, Linz, do you know what I did today?
I do not know what you did today, Chris. Enlighten me.
Well. I may have sent out the Patreon packs to our Bob's Balls level subscribers.
Ooh, what do you get in those packs, Chris?
Well, I'm going to keep it a little bit of a surprise for them to open it up, but there are some exclusive DSR goodies inside there, and also a nice little letter for everybody as well.
Aw, I would have totally sent a little letter if I was back in Blighty with you, but maybe on the next pack.
Sounds good to me. So if you want in on that action, we'll be doing these, again at some point in the not too distant future. So you can sign up to our Patreon. Remember, it's the Bob's Balls a level that get all of the additional goodies. The regular old one, that's just for support, but you do get access to our Instagram as well.
Yes, and if you don't know what the heck Bob's Balls is, go back and listen to episode 1.
His wife is still angry about those pants.
Who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't be? So, Chris.
Yes.
You told the listeners that I had a tale for you today.
Yes, it is, I believe, your episode, because if it's not, I am woefully unprepared.
Well, we do have a very big, long, slippery tale for everyone today.
Oh, wait, it's not.
It's time.
Yes.
It is time to drain the loch.
Drain the loch. Drain the loch.
Drain the loch. I'm sure that's horrifically out of time with a slight lag, but you're going to enjoy it anyway. So, Chris.
Yes.
Loch Ness.
I'm aware of it.
You are aware of it because actually, the last time we did meet in person, you were like, do you know how long the loch is? And I was like, shut up.
I always thought it was like, in my head, I think of like Loch Ness as a big circular thing. When I was in Chicago, that's on the side of Lake Michigan, and you look out there, and if you didn't know it was a lake, you just think it was an ocean because it's like so big. It just seems like this big mass that goes on forever. And I mean, that's what I always envisioned Loch Ness as, not a long snaky thing.
Loch Ness, a big-ass freshwater loch located in the Scottish Highlands, flowing approximately 23 miles southwest of Inverness. At 22 square miles, it is the second largest Scottish loch. However, it's the largest by volume in Great Britain. 230 metres deep, Loch Ness is a murky boy, dark, full of peat, with very low visibility. If you need an idea of how big Loch Ness is, think about it like this. If you poured all the lakes in England into the seemingly bottomless pit that is Loch Ness, it still wouldn't be full.
Wow. And what's Pete doing down there?
Are you saying Pete as in a man? Or are you literally asking me about Pete?
Yes.
The substance. Which one?
The man.
You're so silly. But yeah, Chris, last time we met in person, you were talking about Loch Ness, so I think that you might know. You might have looked it up, coincidentally. So what surprised you about Loch Ness? Because I know you looked it up on Google Earth or Google Maps.
Apart from the fact that it is a long boy and not a round boy,
Yeah.
the thing that surprised me was that it is connected to the ocean.
Yeah.
It has a river tributary that leads into it, and that is connected to the ocean in Inverness, which I didn't know.
So it doesn't sound so stupid to drain the loch now, does it? Just get a bunch of beavers and shove it all out into the sea.
Maybe, although I mean, with that much volume of water in there may be some like islands in the Bahamas somewhere that might be very angry at you if you do that. If you displace all of that water at that one time.
It's fresh water. A lot of people need fresh water. Ignore the fact that it's going to go through the ocean. And those beavers would have to dive really, really deep.
Are there Scottish beavers?
Yeah. Otters. Yeah.
Pip, write in and tell us.
Otters. Yeah, Pip, let us know. I think there's otters. But, okay. The Loch Ness is home to... Do you want to guess what kind of creatures live in Loch Ness?
You mean aside from the obvious?
Aside from the Loch Ness Monster, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll give you a clue. It's mostly a bunch of fishies.
Right. So, I mean, is it like trout? Is it salmon?
Yep.
Is it all of your favourites at Morrison's supermarket?
It's all of the classics. Eels, pike, sturgeon, minnows, little boys, salmon, of course, trout, char, and stickleback. So, Chris, the Loch Ness Monster grabbed the world's attention in the early 1930s. However, the first recorded sighting of a monster in the loch was much, much earlier, like the year 565 earlier.
That is an early wake-up call compared to when it became famous.
Yeah.
I didn't realise. So stories of the Loch Ness Monster or of something in the lake have gone back to, well, a long, long time ago.
A long, 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 long time ago.
In a loch far, far away.
So, Nessie first, well, we think, made an appearance in a Christian hagiography text penned by, let me try and pronounce this, Adovnan.
Oh, Adovnan.
Adovnan was also known by his cheeky nickname, Eunan, and he was an abbot of Iona Abbey just off the Isle of Mull on the west coast of Scotland. Iona Abbey is one of the oldest Christian centres in northwest Europe and the OG HQ responsible for the spread of religion through the country. Eunan authored The Life of Columba. Columba was an Irish abbot as well as a missionary evangelist who did his thing in and around Scotland. He also founded the Iona Abbey. Columba claimed to have not only sighted, but narrowly escaped death at the hands, or flippers, of Nessie in the 6th century AD. So this is pre-Viking, Chris. Early Middle Ages.
So why didn't they just like lure all the Vikings to Loch Ness?
Right? I mean...
And then be like, sick 'em, boy!
We could be like, this is our king, and if you defeat him, fair enough, take England. So, in the pre-Viking early Middle Ages, there was a people called the Picts. That's Picts, Picts. They're assumed to be the descendants of Iron Age tribes. So Columba was chilling in the land of the Picts, and the people were having a funeral for one of their fallen comrades who they decided to bury alongside the River Ness. When Columba inquired about the man's cause of death, the Picts told him that the decedent had been killed while he was out swimming, that he was attacked and mauled and drowned by the hand of an aquatic beast, which they referred to as a monster. So according to the Picts, as they tried to rescue their friend by boat, Columba was approached by the monster, but repelled it with the sign of the cross and a command. He told the beast, "Go no further, do not touch the man." And the beast, as if ripped away by an invisible hand of God, was pulled backwards and away and fled the scene. To the Picts, it was proof of a miracle. What do you think about that, Chris? First Nessie sighting.
I mean, I think that's pretty cool, to be honest. It's I mean, I've never heard any modern we're used to, like, we're going to go on to this, I'm sure, but the sturgeon photograph and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Surgeon, is it surgeon or sturgeon? Nicola Sturgeon didn't take a picture, did she?
No, it was surgeon, but we'll get
Surgeon,
to him later.
Yeah, I mean, Nicola Sturgeon's out of a job now, so she might end up hunting for Nessie, and in which case you're welcome to join us. No problem. But no, it's pretty cool because in the modern sort of sense of Nessie, we don't really think of them as an aquatic beast that mauls people. It's
kind of friendly,
a mysterious. Yeah, it's kind of a mysterious creature that's out there. Whereas this, like, early days, second album Nessie is like fucking hardcore.
Yeah, it's kind of like everything back in the day. Everything was just a bit more angry, a bit more brutal, and it took a lot more to survive. So Nessie was like, "There's a snack, gonna chomp."
And what did they say? What did the guy say to him? What was the chant?
He said, "Go no further. Do not touch the man." I don't think he was just going to lightly touch him. I would have been like, "Cease, beast," or something. But yeah, I guess off the cuff, it was probably hard to think of something cool and like 80s action hero.
Go no further and do not touch the man. Hasta la vista, baby.
Hasta la vista, bitch. And then he just gets ripped into the abyss.
Hasta la vista, Nessie.
We are so lame today, but I love it. All right, Chris, so whether you want to believe this tale or not is up to you. Some think it's nothing more than legend or folklore that you would find in texts of the time, but others believe it's the first example of proof of Nessie.
I was going to say, I suppose we should probably acknowledge that Nessie, whilst being the most famous beast, is not the only one. I mean, there was tales up and down the country of these, giant creatures. I mean, probably the most famous one that everybody's heard of, aside from Nessie, would be the dragon that St. George slayed.
Yep.
And then, of course, more local to us up here in the northeast of England, you got the Lambton worm, which was just a giant worm that slayed people all the time. Which, if you try and envision that in your head, a bit lame.
I imagine it rising up and then going splat and like just crushing tiny people in its wake. But other than that, I don't know what a worm would do. I'm sure they eat. Might have a little mouth somewhere.
A worm, he's wiggled our town to death.
Wiggled and wriggled. It just doesn't sound brutal enough.
No.
We have to get a giant seagull to combat it or something.
Never heard of a Lambton worm?
I've heard of the Lambton worm, but I don't know. That's as far as it goes, just hearing the words Lambton worm.
Oh, okay. It's County Durham, I should say.
Oh, another religious place. All right, so let's go on to some further sightings. So there were sightings of a strange creature in the loch in the 1800s too. So in the 1870s, and Mr. D. Mackenzie believed he saw something wriggling in the water, but he didn't report it until 1934. In 1888, a Mr. Alexander MacDonald claimed to see a stubby-legged great salamander big boy leaping through the water close to the shore. He reported the incident to the enforcement officer of the loch at the time, and his name was Alex Campbell. What do you think of those? So we have a thing wriggling in the water, and then we have stubby-legged giant salamander big boy leaping through the water next to the shore.
I mean, Nessie's definitely been on a bit of a world tour and lost his edge, and is pretty much making records for radio now. I mean, that's a stubby-legged creature hopping about and a thing wriggling in the water. All right, sounds like a fish at this point.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do find it's quite notable though that they call it I don't know if it's your words or theirs, but they say salamander.
Yeah, I don't think in 1888 they were calling it a big boy salamander.
We could live in hope. Because my mind went to, have you ever seen like a giant salamander?
Yes.
They're terrifying and they're ancient.
Yes. I think most things that live in the water kind of scare me. There's something, they're either really fast and terrifying and spiky, or really big and poofy and slow and ghostly. It's like things in the water just scare me.
Well, you've got a fear of water and sharks in water anyway, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. I have like a fear of like even dolphins. Like I think I would have a heart attack if I got in the water with dolphins.
Wow. What about
especially after that one episode?
I was going to say, what about if there was LSD involved?
Especially after Chris's readings of the dolphin erotica fanfic. Oh wait, he only read that personally to me. Nobody else had to suffer it.
No. It was on an episode. We did do it on an episode. I think it was one of the Q&A episodes. Yeah.
Okay, so was that the Anna Kournikova one? Could be. That's the one that keeps me up at night and not in a sexy way. Okay, stubby-legged giant salamander big boy, Chris. What do you think about that? So we've gone from, a furious, scary beast that eats the Picts and monks or whatever, to stubby salamander.
Yeah, it's a bit of a downgrade. I think that the first one is very like biblical. It's like almost Jonah and the whale-esque, and it's like, attempt of, overcoming this beast that was, terrorizing the local people. And it's quite quickly, and I've say quickly, there's quite a long time between the reported incidents, but in terms of our episode, within a couple of minutes, we've gone from terrifying creature down to wiggly thing in the water. So he decidedly lost his edge. But what was the next sighting?
All right, so the next sighting is around the era when Nessie was most popular. So it was in 1933, and this is where shit gets real. So remember Alex Campbell, the enforcement officer from the previous report? Well, at this point, he was also a part-time journalist. Campbell penned an account of Nessie sightings told to him by the Mackays, a couple who saw a large whale-like aquatic beast turning on the surface of the loch, churning in the water. They spotted the creature from the window of their car as they drove parallel to the loch along the A82 in the spring of 1933. Campbell wrote an article about the sighting, which was published May 2nd, 1933, in the Inverness Courier, less than 3 weeks after the sighting on April 15th. Others were reported to have seen the same thing that day and remained confused and shocked by what they had seen. So yeah, Chris, we have whale-like aquatic beast turning on the surface of the loch. Yeah, whale-like aquatic beast.
I mean, I can kind of see that, if it, given the original description of a sort of almost like a plesiosaur, that's what I'm going to go with the kind of classic description. If it was kind of turning around and you couldn't it wasn't sort of raising its head out of the water, it was just flipping around. It could resemble a sort of whale, I suppose, with its body and from afar. I don't think that's an unfair assessment.
I guess so. I mean, there's the long neck thing, but if you remember our episode on
the Pensacola sea monster.
Yes, our episode on the Pensacola sea monster. If you remember, we had that theory at the end that a Redditor came up with. And the northern right whale, when it kind of breached the surface to eat, kind of looked like a long-necked creature. So if you can mistake a whale for a plesiosaur creature, could you mistake a plesiosaur creature for a whale? Probably, theoretically.
In theory, yeah, I suppose one could. I don't know how many whales are seen up there around.
0. Probably in the loch. There's no whales known in the loch, though.
I don't think there's any freshwater whales.
No, exactly. Or nothing that's kind of even wound up there. Just, well, we'll get to that, won't we?
I mean, whales do. I mean, do you remember a few years ago, probably about a decade ago now, actually, there was a whale that got lost at the Thames.
Yeah, they're usually ill, though, when they wind up in places they shouldn't be. So, yeah, I mean, they do end up in weird places sometimes, but not by, their own choice, I guess. Usually some strange circumstance that they end up there. Because there's like tornadoes and things get kind of flung to areas they shouldn't be in. And it's like, what the heck?
So a Scottish tornado flung a whale into Loch Ness.
I'm not saying that there was a Scottish tornado. Oh, God damn it, Chris.
I mean, it's a far-flung theory, Linz, but it's a bold one.
Shut up. So, Chris, 1933 was a spicy year for the Beast of Loch Ness. Another man, George Spicer, along with his wife, spotted what's believed to be Nessie. Spotted what is believed to be Nessie, large and limbless, making its way across the road towards the loch, inching along like an 8-meter-long caterpillar dragon in front of their car. As they watched in awe, the creature destroyed bushes and shrubs in its way and slipped into the loch, vanishing.
I've never heard any stories of creature exiting the loch onto land.
Neither had I, but cool. That's because I knew nothing about Loch Ness or the Loch Ness Monster, apparently.
What if they are also trans-dimensional beings like we established the Bigfoot is?
Well, that's definitely the case. So, if it's not a tornado, it's trans-dimensional beings. Why the hell not? But yeah, seriously, a creature dragging itself along the road and slipping into the loch. I like that one. That means he can come out to hunt, Chris.
That makes it more scary. It's like once you escape the loch, you've not escaped the terror.
Exactly, because you could be like, I'm not scared of the Loch Ness Monster, it's in the loch. No, it's not. It's inching its way along the road.
It's outside your bedroom window right now.
It could be. And imagine it's a long neck sticking up to the second floor of your house.
Just going everywhere I can find, just searching for $3.50.
Stop. So George said that the creature had a robust body, high back, and long wavy neck that bounced up and down as it moved. It was a speedy geezer and disappeared into the murky depths as quickly as it had appeared. George said the beast had another smaller animal clenched in its jaws.
So it leaves the loch to hunt.
Yes, according to George Spicer.
But I thought there was loads of fishy boys just like wiggling around at the top of the lake that it could just have its fill.
There is, and it's likely the only predator in there. If there's only one Loch Ness Monster, so unless it gets bored, like an enrichment task.
It's a side quest for him.
Yeah, it's a Nessie side quest because, it probably gets boring in there.
I know how deep did you say it was?
230 meters deep. That's freaking deep.
That is deep, man.
How deep is your loch?
'Cause I really need to know. 'Cause you're living in a world of Scots. Oh God, my voice can't go that high. Bringing us down. Oh. Cut that bit, please, God.
No, we're leaving that in. You can't deprive the people of that. I'm editing this. You go away. Chris, there's no way in hell I'm taking that out.
I was just trying to compare it to something.
Was it wrestlers? Is it how many big shows deep the Loch Ness is?
Yeah, it's 439 big shows.
I fucking knew it.
No. I was trying to compare it to the Mariana Trench to see how deep it was, but the Mariana Trench is considerably deeper.
Yeah. So in 1933, the people were swept up by Nessie mania, and reports flooded in after readers of the Inverness Courier read the articles on the, quote, strange spectacle in Loch Ness. So multiple people reported to have seen this whale-like or dragon-like creature, so it was only a matter of time, Chris, before someone snapped a picture.
The hunt was on.
So here we have the first ever photographic evidence of the beast, taken by a man named Hugh Gray in 1933. He spotted old Nessie while walking his dog. Let's take a look at that picture.
Okay, so...
First picture snapped of Loch Ness. Impressed?
No. So this is a rather smudgy black and white photograph, and you can sort of see on the left-hand side something that sort of resembles a flipper. The rest of it sort of resembles an upturned boat. Mm-hmm. I don't actually know what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't scream Loch Ness to me in any way, shape or form. It's just like a blob, and yeah, very grainy, looks pretty zoomed in to me. Not impressed.
No, I would, this would not, if I'd never heard of Nessie before, this would not convince me.
All right, well... Contact prints of old Hugh Gray's photograph were discovered and enlarged to reveal an otter.
Now you mention it, yeah, that it does look like an otter. Yes, I mean that is an aquatic beast.
Aquatic beast, yes, a little aquatic beast.
A little aquatic otter.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not quite the Nessie-esque creature that I had in mind. Got anything else?
So just to confirm, Chris, this hasn't convinced you?
No, it hasn't. I mean...
Right.
We
okay.
Unless we are trying to put forth the theory that Nessie is actually a group of otters sellotaped together.
In a trench coat.
And a fake mustache.
In a tartan hat with an orange thing on the top of it. All right, I see you're not convinced. Let's move on to the next. So, early the following year, in January of 1934, a motorcyclist out for a midnight ride had a similar experience to the Mackays. Arthur Grant was riding along the northeast side of the loch when he saw a creature very similar to the dragon-like beast described the previous year. Grant hopped off his bike to get a closer look at the creature, but by the time he dismounted, the beast was long gone, slipping into the loch like a thief in the night. We have a sketch of what Grant saw that day, so let's take a look at that, Chris.
Oh, this is, when we get sketches involved, this is always the best. Okay, let's take a look at this sketch. Right. So this is a sketch which appears to be from a newspaper. The caption reads, "The Loch Ness Monster, as sketched by Mr. A. Grant from Lieutenant Commander Gould's interesting monograph upon the subject." Is that interesting?
Yes.
Yeah. And what we have here is it's a very long plesiosaur, basically. The top half of it is exactly what you think of when you think of Nessie, but the lower half is sort of dinosaur-like. I know plesiosaur is technically a dinosaur, but the lower half, the way that it's got flippers at the top end, but at the bottom end they are more like legs.
It's giving platypus.
Yeah, platypus would be a good sort of analogy you could draw from it. It definitely seems to have different functions for the hind and the fore flipper arm things, though.
Yeah, he has flipper arms and kind of what looks like 3 large toes on each little stubby leg at the back. And then he has like kind of a fat tail.
He does. It's not
fat and flat, like a, maybe like a rudder or something, I would say.
Yeah, but not like a platypus, as in where it'd be flat on the top. It seems to be flat on the side.
Yeah, I mean, we've only got a side profile of it, so it would be nice if we could have a little bird's eye view, but I guess the old motorcyclist didn't get a close enough look, so this is what we have. This will be on the Instagram, by the way, d.s.radio, so you can look at these two and maybe comment about what you think.
This is getting more in the right direction of it, though. We are coming up to classic Nessie.
Yeah. So, Chris, convinced yet by this little sketch? Is that doing it for you?
More than an otter, yes, but no, I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah. Okay, we're getting there. So let's proceed to the next sighting. Chris, this sighting again was blamed on, well, otters or seals or whatever. Grant was accused of having exaggerated or misreported the details, which I don't know how you'd see an otter and mistake it for a giant dinosaur, but okay, let's go with that. So now we're on to probably the most famous of all the Nessie sightings, and the iconic photo that we all imagine when we think of that classic Loch Ness Monster.
The Nicola Sturgeon photograph.
Maybe. This picture was taken by a Mr. Robert Kenneth Wilson. It's referred to as the surgeon's photograph because initially Wilson did not want his name attached to the image, as he said he was a surgeon. He didn't want to screw up his career. He took a total of 4 pictures that day, 2 of which were clear, and he sent them into the Daily Mail asking to remain anonymous. And the pictures were published on April 21st, 1934. So
a couple of things there.
Yeah.
Firstly, I found it very interesting. It's like, I'm a surgeon. I don't want my career to be affected by this. Like, is somebody going to be like, when he walks into the operating room, is somebody going to be like, whoa, anaesthetist, no. Not somebody who believes in Loch Ness Monster. Get me a rational surgeon in here.
That's the guy who believes in that stupid worm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like you're gonna know, is it? Like, his face isn't being published. You're not gonna go, that's the Loch Ness guy, he's an idiot, I don't want him saving my life.
Also, as well, I didn't realise that they were published in the Daily Mail.
Yeah, exactly.
Now makes us instantly less credible.
Chris, there's a whole story behind it, honestly. So, since Wilson wanted to remain anonymous, the photo became known as the surgeon's photo, as we said. And he was paid £100 for the image by the Daily Mail.
That'd be quite a princely sum at the time.
Exactly, I think that's pretty damn good. So although Wilson wanted to remain anonymous, now, decades later, much is known about the man. He was born in Madagascar in 1889 to doctor/Quaker parents. He was sent to England and raised by his sister, who had married into the Cadbury family. Yes, as in the chocolate people.
Delicious.
He was in the military and he fought in World War I, and he went on to study medicine, becoming a general surgeon and gynecologist.
The only time I thought I'd ever hear gynecology and Cadbury's in the same sentence.
So in 1934, Wilson was on a shooting and fishing trip with a Mr. Maurice Chambers, a friend of his, when he shot a series of photographs of what he claimed to be the Loch Ness Monster. He took the film and had it developed at a pharmacy in Inverness and sent them into the Daily Mail. Despite trying to keep his identity secret, he did suffer consequences from the British Medical Association in the form of a fine. This picture of Nessie went on to be the most well-known. So let's take a look at that picture we all know and love, Chris.
I can't believe they fined him.
Yeah, I mean, like, who cares?
Was the fine £100? Did they hear about how much you'd been paid? Like,
they were like,
we'll have some
I'll
of
take
that.
A slice of that. Yeah. Here we have, if you could look at that first picture I've sent you there and just describe it. I mean, I know you know it, we all know it, but just in case there's someone out there who doesn't know about it, I guess.
Sure. So this is the classic picture of Nessie that I think pretty much everything afterwards has been based around. So you have the water rippling, and in the center of it, you have got a silhouette of essentially a dinosaur, aquatic dinosaur, a plesiosaur really. Its head is protruding out of the water, and the sort of ripples are coming out from it as if it's just surfaced from the water. There appears to be a bit of a body beneath it, but it hasn't emerged enough in the most famous picture for you to be able to tell what kind of a body it has, although often, of course, it's represented by having a sort of series of rainbows, if you will, popping out of the water behind it. But that's not the case in this photograph. One thing that I notice looking at this, more than maybe I've ever done it before, is the perspective. This seems to be very small.
Exactly. That was my first thought. I've never properly looked at this picture, but when I was looking at it for this script, I was like, that is something tiny. That is not a big thing.
Yeah, it looks like it's a model.
Yeah.
Or it's either a model or it's a very small baby Loch Ness Monster.
I told you, didn't I? Loch Ness Monster hasn't been found because he's just a mini little guy.
I mean, yeah, that would explain it. That would explain quite a lot. But off the top of my head, I can't think of any creatures that could raise their head out of the water in such a fashion. I don't think there's any long-necked aquatic creatures now, apart from like eels, which are just one long neck. But they can't raise.
They're just necks.
Maybe snakes. Maybe sea snakes can.
Yeah, a snake for sure. Maybe, you know those, have you ever seen those long neck turtles that like, it looks like a snake has been shoved in a tortoise shell?
Yeah, that could be an option, but I don't know. I think they just like retract their heads back and forth. I don't think they can like kind of go upwards and then have a little crook in the neck.
Yeah, really strange. Just very dinosaur-like and very small looking in this picture.
Yeah.
Looking at it with my eyes as an adult and not a child.
It's difficult to guess the exact size, but I would guess that this might be the size of, a model boat.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, Chris.
Yes.
I guess we'll continue on with that in mind, shall we?
Okay, let's proceed.
So this image is a cropped portion of a larger picture. The zoomed-in version looks arguably more convincing than the original shot. However, many doubted its authenticity, and many alternative explanations for the subject in the photograph have been presented. So, the ripples around the creature, as you said, have also been pointed out to be very large compared to the beast in the image, and it has been estimated that the creature in the picture could be approximately 2 to 3 feet in length or 60 to 90 centimeters. So if you see that zoomed out picture, Chris,
yeah,
it looks very different to the cropped one.
It does, so
way less convincing with all of that empty space around it.
Yeah, but you're exactly right. The other thing, though, that gives you real perspective is the fact that you can see a bit of the shoreline in the background.
Exactly.
It kind of places it, the actual size of it, and you can see that these are not waves, these are ripples in the water. So I'd be very, very surprised if this particular photograph was of a real full-size Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, same. So for over half a century, people were skeptical of that image, and although multiple theories were thrown around, nobody really knew officially what the image depicted. Then, in the early 1990s, Maurice Chambers, who had been with Wilson on the fishing trip that day, had sadly passed away, and amongst his belongings, they supposedly found evidence that the whole Nessie sighting and subsequent photographs had been faked, with the involvement of several individuals. It was discovered that Wilson did not take the photograph, and that it was actually shot by a man named Marmaduke Wetherill. Wonderful name.
Damn it! My son's just turned 1. Is it too late to change his name?
What a name, right? Marmaduke Wetherill. So, Wetherill was a British South African big game hunter, amongst other things. And what they claimed was the Loch Ness Monster in the photo was actually a model of a head and neck grafted onto a toy submarine created by an artist named Christian Sperling, who had bought the toy submarine from Woolworths.
Oh, excellent. So, Marmaduke, the old guy, firstly, big game hunter. Like, what? Can you imagine having that profession? I mean, I assume he dressed exclusively in khaki and one of those.
Oh, you can imagine him, can't you?
One of those round helmet safari hat things,
Yep.
and with a mustache that is just begging to be twirled.
Yes, and little round glasses, really small frames. Or, if not that, like a Nigel Thornberry type of guy.
But I mean, what an unusual series of events. But for anybody who doesn't get why we were laughing so much is because Woolworths, I know it still exists in some form, I think maybe in Australia.
Yeah, Woolies. They love a Woolies in Australia.
It was a British sort of, what would you call it? I mean, it was a very general.
They sold CDs. They sold
CDs, DVDs, books, videos, but they also sold stationery.
A lot of toys.
A lot of toys as well. It was just a kind of, I don't think we have anything like that anymore. They all kind of gone out of fashion, but it's sort of like a general store, but one that didn't really do food.
It was quite fun though.
It was, and they did do a lot of things. It's probably been replaced by like Wilco's and stuff now.
Yeah, it's kind of like Wilco's. I'm not sure that helps anyone outside of the UK, but yeah, they sold general things, just not really food. So Sperling was also Marmaduke Wetherill's son-in-law. So the artist who made the thing was Marmaduke Wetherill's son-in-law. Wilson didn't have much involvement other than being the face of the hoax due to his professional role as a doctor, which was believed would make him credible.
Now, listen up, boy. I'll let you marry into this family, and it's time you contribute something as a bloody artist. I need you to make a fake dinosaur for me. So I've got this doctor friend of mine, very, very, very credible, and I'm gonna run tours. You see, tours for tourists who want to shoot Nessie.
But Chris, it begs the question: why did this group of men decide to perpetrate a Loch Ness Monster hoax and sell the pictures to the Daily Mail?
Well, I mean, for either to run, hunting tours for it, or for that sweet, sweet £100 they got.
I'm sure the submarine cost like 20 at least. But Chris, Marmaduke Wetherill had beef with the Daily Mail.
Oh.
He was actually employed by them, but had been publicly ridiculed by the tabloid after he discovered and reported on what he believed to be Nessie footprints.
Oh, so we've got a whole kind of Bigfoot situation here. If you haven't listened to our Bigfoot episode, you'll go back and listen to it. But you remember the guys in there were hell-bent on going out to find Bigfoot and ultimately found him, or they claimed to have found him. And this seems to be the same sort of thing here. Good old Marmaduke.
I saw the bloody Loch Ness Monster, it's true.
Well, where's your evidence?
I'll fake it.
Well, it's kind of sad because, Marmaduke Wetherill, big game hunter, you think you know his stuff, right? He finds these Nessie footprints, but they actually turned out to be the footprints of a taxidermy hippopotamus foot that had probably been affixed to a stand or ashtray. An unknown third party had stamped the footprints near the loch as a practical joke, which Wetherill, like we said, the big game hunter, had fallen for. So these footprints had actually been sent to London for analysis at the Natural History Museum. And of course, when the results came back, the Daily Mail couldn't contain themselves and they humiliated Wetherill over the story. Oh. So the surgeon's photograph was Wetherill's revenge.
Ah, this is very, very interesting. What a twist to this tale. Linz, do you have a picture of Marmaduke for me?
I do, Chris, and here you go.
Okay. So I had not seen this picture before my description earlier, and he is exactly as described. He is wearing his head to toe in khaki. He's got a more of a Baden Powell style hat than a hunter's hat on. He has a mustache begging to be twirled. He's got little beady eyes, and in this particular picture, he also has a monkey attached to his camera.
I hate to move on from Marmaduke,
Right.
but we do have another piece of Loch Ness Monster evidence here.
Okay.
It's a short 16mm colour film filmed by a tourist named G.E. Taylor on the 29th of May 1938. So let's take a look at that, and you can describe to the people and give your expert opinion.
29th of May. That's a pretty good day. It's not as good as the 25th of May, which is my birthday.
Yeah, I actually put that in my calendar.
Yeah, everyone put it in your calendar, you know? Okay, so that was a little newsreel clip. And for anybody who is unfamiliar with newsreel clips, they are often accompanied by the most wonderfully awful British accent that you've ever heard. And I love the way in it. So this clip, before I describe what's actually happening in it, there's one part where they talk about how the footage they have got of Nessie didn't come out particularly well because of the elements. But the way that he phrases it is like, our footage didn't come out perfectly due to the conditions that the film was kept in and the exposure. But that is no matter and not important because it's a fantastic achievement. So this is reportedly newsreel footage of some men filming the Loch Ness Monster, and they're using very, very old cameras that sort of resemble hand-cranked machine guns. And you can see that there's a guy with an old-school beret on, and he's moving the camera back and forth, and there's also a little gentleman to his left who seems to be doing double footage of this for some reason. Maybe it's a bit like Tommy Wiseau, and they're filming it both on film and video. But the actual footage you can't tell that it's Loch Ness or not, but we'll take it at face value. And there is something moving underneath the water. And you can see that there is definitely a stream that could only be made by, friction against the waves, not by a wave itself. It's in a very particular pattern. There's a dark object beneath it, although you cannot really tell what that is. This could be footage that had been spliced together from the Caribbean of a whale or a dolphin, or what it's actually kind of moving like?
A log.
Because now hold on, now I'm looking at this. There is a tiny little fin on the back, or what I would assume to be a fin on the back that is protruding out of the water. And that would suggest to me that it was some kind of shark. It's one that's cruising along very slowly, like maybe a basking shark might do, something like that. And obviously basking sharks are of a very, very large size as well.
So you're saying you see a fin?
I think I kind of, I'm not going to stake my house on it.
Okay, there's something that's sticking slightly higher than the rest of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say fin. It's something's protruding up a little higher than the rest of it.
If it was a fin, it wouldn't be a dorsal fin.
No.
It would be I don't know if it's called the anal fin or if it's on the top or
the anal fin.
Yeah, they have anal fins. I think they're on the bottom. But it's whatever the secondary fin is on the top that they have. That's the one that's protruding, which doesn't really make much sense unless there is a shark that I don't know off the top of my head that doesn't have a dorsal fin.
Huh. Well, the general conclusion? Floating object. So there have been multiple other photos and videos of Nessie over the decades, most of which are just of waves or ripples of inanimate objects floating on the water. But in the late 70s, a self-proclaimed magician, Tony Doc Shields, claimed to have summoned Nessie from the loch, resulting in this image, Chris.
Let's see what Tony's conjured up here. Right, okay. So this is much more recognizable as a dinosaur, as a plesiosaur, I'm going to say. It's the head is protruding out, and you can see the different colors on its neck and so on. It does appear to be larger than the other photograph, although I'd still say it's on the smaller side of things. I wouldn't say that this is a giant beast. However, it does have a fantastic set of pearly whites.
I was going to say, Chris, what are you laughing at?
It does have some gnashes on it, and it seems to be incredibly happy to be having its picture taken. This is like, one for the holiday album, I think.
Yeah.
For this particular set of aquatic creatures.
So, Chris, due to how ridiculously fake it looks, it is often referred to as the Loch Ness Muppet. Doc Shields could easily be an episode in himself, so let's just say he's a character, and Nessie isn't the only monster he's tried to summon in his life. It was kind of his thing at one point.
Right.
So as you can see, it's hoax after hoax and not much compelling evidence for the existence of the Loch Ness Monster. But next up, for your analysis, we have the Holmes footage, taken on the 26th of May, 2007, by 55-year-old laboratory technician Gordon Holmes.
Okay, so we're getting both closer to modern times and also closer to the 25th of May.
Yes.
Do you want me to watch the whole thing or just skip forward to the...
Just skip to get an idea of it.
Okay, so this footage is quite shaky and there's something moving under the water there, definitely. What it might be is up to anybody's mind. And I've got to say that I do love Gordon's. Is that a Lancashire accent? Is it? I was privileged to one of the most amazing sats I've ever seen. It's like whatever the fuck like Wallace is from Wallace and Gromit.
Yes, it's probably not at all, but we'll go with that. What's your opinion on the Gordon Holmes footage then, Chris?
It's the most convincing I've seen. I mean, also it's much more modern technology, but it seems to be something large in the water, so it definitely isn't just a very small model boat. And it does seem to be moving in an interesting fashion. They call it serpentine in the footage.
Yeah.
Like a snake moving along. I don't see that myself, really.
No. I
Although
mean...
I can see, you know what? I can see it a little bit, actually. If you're looking for it, you can see it.
Yeah, but isn't that the same with everything? Because you know what I see when I see that kind of stuff? I'm always just like, big eel.
Yeah, but how
because
big
you
of
can
an...
get some big-ass eels,
And, yeah, but you don't get like moray eels and stuff.
They can get big, and also
not in
I'm
Loch
not
Ness.
sure how big they get in the loch. Yeah, but there's nothing to really eat them.
Oh, there's Nessie.
Apparently not, by all of the evidence so far, Chris. Right? But I think this guy's footage, I mean, does it look really, really big to you?
Bigger than the other things. I mean, I'm not going to stick a bet on this, but it's the most compelling footage we've seen so far.
Do you think so? Is that because we don't know what it is?
Well, it's just more convincing than everything else we've seen. I think the other photographs are quite clearly models, and that other video was quite clearly either not taken at Loch Ness or was something being pushed along under the water.
Okay, well, we'll put a pin in it. This is the most convincing so far. But Chris,
yes,
we've got a couple of other hoaxes that are kind of prominent in the story. So we had George Edwards, a cruise boat operator on the loch. He claimed he'd taken a picture of Nessie, but he later crumbled under questioning of the Inverness Courier and admitted that he'd created a model of the monster from fiberglass. I think my favourite Nessie sighting was in 2016 when a Norwegian robot was surveying the loch and captured this image.
What?
Yeah.
Is this?
Mm-hmm.
So this is what they're surveying it. Is this like a... Oh.
Looks like a monster, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, for the benefit of those at home, this is some kind of scan footage. I'm not. I don't know what type of scan this particularly is, but they must be surveying the bed of the loch or the...
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and there's a distinctly Nessie-esque figure here.
Sorry.
There's a long, what appears to be a long head protruding from a mass, and kind of the mass itself, it loses its shape and kind of fires off into something else. It doesn't really look like Nessie, but it's Nessie-esque enough that it would make somebody go, oh.
It made you go, oh.
Oh.
So do you like this one, Chris?
I do. I'd like to find out more about the type of scan they were doing and what it was, what else it would show up. Like, what does a fish look like on this?
Well, Chris, I have a little bit more information, if you would like.
Yes.
All right, so this scan turned out to be a 30-foot prop Nessie that was used in the movie The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes that was built in 1969. Apparently the model had accidentally sank and of course had never been recovered.
Oh.
So I've got a picture of the...
That's brilliant. Oh.
So here's the model, Chris. This is another one they built after the last one sunk.
Oh gosh, that's amazing. I mean, check out the Instagram for this one. This is a very sort of Ray Harryhausen-esque monster that's been made for the Sherlock Holmes movies. I did not realize that Loch Ness Monster featured in Sherlock Holmes.
No, neither did I. Especially that it was filmed in the loch and then the monster sunk to the bottom of the loch, and then decades later Norwegian robots would get this image of it and go, oh my god.
That is brilliant. That is beyond amazing. The only evidence of there being something down there that's been found thus far is a prop that's sunk down there from a production of Sherlock Holmes. Wunderbar.
And they were very upset to lose it as well. They just sunk and they were like, no! And they had to build a whole new one.
That thing looks expensive. Should have built it with a little life jacket on it.
Oh, cute. So there have been many sonar scans of the loch multiple times over the years, but each result can be explained away as rocks, fish, bubbles, and other loch-dwelling creatures and so forth. So there's no real concrete evidence that a monster resides in the depth. So to wrap this up, Chris, I want to end on this note. I didn't want to finish the episode without mentioning this because I think it's really interesting. So in Scottish mythology, kelpies are said to be present in every body of water, including lochs and rivers and so forth. Kelpies are described as dark-coloured horses with wet manes, sticky fur along their backs, and reversed hooves. They were said to call out to humans, oftentimes children, and lure them into the waters. Although welcoming despite their eerie appearance, children who were said to ride kelpies would climb onto their backs and become stuck to the kelpie's fur, which was said to be like the texture of spider webs, and they subsequently drowned in the water when the kelpie went under. Kelpies could also grow in size, stretching length to accommodate more victims. They would act really approachable and calm, but as soon as the victim climbed onto their back or even put a hand on to pet them, they would be doomed. The kelpie would then show its true demonic self and submerge into the water. So there you have it, Chris. That's a nice Scottish folklore to go along with.
So are you suggesting that the Loch Ness Monster could be a kelpie?
Could be a kelpie, Chris, but probably not. I just thought it was really cool that they have some folklore about demonic water creatures. So, Chris, I was kind of sad that there wasn't any real evidence, convincing evidence at least, for the existence of the Loch Ness Monster.
Not from what's been put forth today, certainly. No. I mean, God, I want to believe.
Me too, so badly, but
they're making it very hard for me to believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hoax after hoax. I mean, in the 1930s, people claimed to see some shit. So that was the height of the Loch Ness kind of stuff. But, you know, I mean, there's the stories that don't have pictures. You know, there's just the sort of secondhand accounts. But, I mean, picture and video-wise, it's just the people having beef with the Daily Mail and losing props. And wanting to promote their Loch Ness tour business. So.
I mean, that's the best reason for doing it, in my own opinion. To screw over the Daily Mail. Yeah, I was a bit disappointed though. I mean, I did want to believe, but I think I'm just Well, there's only one thing for it then, isn't there?
Drain the lock? Go to the lock?
Drain the lock.
Seriously. Drain it. Who cares what happens?
I mean, it is interesting thinking about if a creature could survive. And I think one thing that really, when I said earlier I was surprised at the shape of Loch Ness, is that I always envisioned that it would be probably quite hard to see this big creature in it. Because although the lake is very deep, the loch is very deep, excuse me, it's quite narrow. You can see the other side of it at most points.
Yeah, I believe it was formed from like a giant sheet of ice back in the days.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it formed. That's why it's just a big, narrow, very, very deep kind of pocket. But
so, that's the interesting thing to me. I think you would think that someone would actually see it if it was there. If it was a creature, I mean, I don't know the makeup of plesiosaurs. I don't think they needed to come to the surface for air. So it is possible.
that was going to be the Loch Ness Monster Part 2, Chris. Because today we've covered sightings and evidence. There's going to be a Part 2 at some point where we cover...
Oh.
Yeah, where we go a bit deeper into the loch, let's say that.
I'm going deeper in the loch.
Oh man, I can't rhyme anything with loch.
There's too much haggis in this town. Right, so we're not really leaving it there. We're going to have a second episode coming up in the near future.
Yeah, this is the intro, we've laid down the basics. We've got the basic timeline there. We want to go into theories, but, we're already at an hour or so.
So we're doing our first ever intentional two-parter, because the Somerton Man ended up as a two-parter, technically like a 12-parter because of how many times we recorded it. So
we are
fantastic.
simply dipping our toe into the loch today, and then we're going to submerge. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait for part 2. What I'll say then is I'll keep a lot of my opinions to myself then, because I want to see the rest of this evidence that's coming up. But the evidence that's been presented today is not entirely convincing.
No.
The thing that I've gleaned from today...
That you've gleamed, old chap.
Is, the thing I've gleamed from today is... what was the guy's name? Maribold? Was it?
Marmaduke.
The thing I've gleaned from today was Marmaduke was just a very, very upstanding character, yeah.
Marmaduke stickers? I think so.
Well, if Marmaduke says it's true,
yeah,
you've got to believe him.
Can you imagine, though? You're a big game hunter. You think you found footprints. You send it to London, and they come back to you and go, it's a taxidermy ashtray, probably. I want to find the guy who did that, who laid down those footprints with a taxidermy ashtray.
They must have known Marmaduke was coming.
Do you think it was the Daily Mail?
Yeah, well, it was an inside job. Someone framed him.
It was. But yeah, Chris, that's part 1 of my Loch Ness Monster series.
I've never been so happy to hear that there's a second part coming up. So we'll get into that relatively soon. It won't be the next episode.
Nope.
Because that's mine, but maybe it'll come up relatively quickly after that.
Yeah.
I'll let you decide on that particular thing. But thank you very much for presenting today's case, the first half of today's case on Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster, Loch Ness, and quite a lot of phony things that have happened.
Yeah, but they are hilarious. So when you guys see the pictures, you're going to laugh, like especially at the Norwegian robot picture and the model.
Yeah, that's the best detail, the Norwegian robot. Oh,
they must have been so excited.
I just love how every time we do one of these stories, there's always these weird little side quests that we end up going on. About this time it's about Sherlock Holmes movies that would be, a prop that dropped to the bottom of the loch. Remember when we did the episode on Alan Chow going to the remote islands, and we ended up on that side quest about the guy who measured all the native people's penis length?
Yes, exactly.
Check that one out.
Pervert, yeah.
He kept diaries of it.
Yeah, he just measured people's penises. It was just insane. He had pictures of them, and what a weird guy.
Oh, he was a wang measurer.
Professional wang measurer, professional big game hunter. What's the difference? Call it what you like.
I bet you they were friends. But thank you very much, Linz, for presenting today's case. If you do want to see the images, and I would really encourage you to, because some of them are absolute corkers in this episode, remember to go over to our Instagram, which is at d.s.radio.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I hope everyone on the Bob's Balls tier enjoys their little packages Chris is sending out to you guys this week. And
that makes it sound like drugs, Linz. It's not drugs.
It might be. I don't know.
Although if you want some, let me know.
Chris.
I say I know a guy. He's based out of Loch Ness.
I know a guy.
Anything you need. Smack, crack, fake Loch Ness monsters, whatever you need.
Hippopotamus feet ashtrays. We got them.
Well, we will see you next time. Make sure that you check out the Instagram, also our Patreon, patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio. Go on, give us a follow. You know you want to. We've got some fantastic things.
We love you.
On the way.
Stick around.
We do. We will see you next time.